we date. We date. And that's the fun thing. After you're married, you can date. Yes. And we always write notes to each other. We call each other on the phone and text each other and give each other little love notes back and forth. Not allowing each other to get so busy with life and get choked out of, the cares of this world, where things get pretty tense, and you might find yourself snapping at each other.
TGIF, it's Friday, September 3rd. We are on the way to what? Labor Day weekend. Welcome back to my channel. It's Katie. I hope you guys having a great day. We had a really busy week on the channel this week, and we've covered so many different topics. And we're going to end up this week with the Duggars, because I like to always give you a double dive, a deep dive, a dive into the Duggars over the weekend for you guys to enjoy and sort of marinate your time on. We're going to hope to have some, relaxation with the 3-day weekend. For many of us, our kids are going back to school next week, and if you are one of those parents, I'm with you. High five. Welcome back. All right, so People Magazine's latest edition has an article about the Duggars, and in this article, it's talking about how the family is really splintering. Now, first of all, we've talked a lot about the family splintering on my channel. We've talked about how there's been a division that has gotten wider, with Jill and Derek really sort of taking a step back and sort of separating themselves from the family as a whole, distancing themselves. Jill's issues primarily are with her parents, but it has required her to take some steps away from some of her siblings who, maybe make it harder for her to live her life without the judgment and the feeling like she needs to come back into that life. And Ginger has also taken sort of a step back, step away, and she's moved to Los Angeles and is kind of just doing her own thing. She hasn't been back to Arkansas since Jed's wedding, and really hasn't really been connecting to the family as a whole. You don't see her shouting out her parents, or, she saw Jana and Jason and James last weekend. But other than that, she's really just been kind of doing her own thing. She's a mom of 2 kids. Some fans say she's been looking tired. I'm saying she's a mom of 2 kids, and she's just sort of like on her own over there. Justin's in Texas, meaning that he's kind of doing his own thing down there. And there's been a divide that's created in the family, and some people are saying that this one is different because it's not like anything previously. In the article, they talked to a family insider and also people in town. And, I will say that I've had a chance to speak to quite a few locals, and they all do say the same thing. They really do want Josh to be held accountable, and they want Josh to be make sure that he does get prison time. They don't want him to get out of this on a technicality. They're kind of tired of the rumors and knowing that he's been up to things. And, it's not been a secret in their area that this has been going on. Not necessarily about what he was arrested for, just overall his behavior. And I think people are just kind of like tired of it. And Jim Bob is obviously the biggest sort of takeaway from this article, is the source basically saying that Jim Bob is financing their entire lives right now. And Josh and Anna, that is, I should say. And I think we already knew this, you guys. I think we already were aware that Jim Bob was paying for his defense. And I think we already knew that they were financing his life and paying for him to be living right now, because is Josh even working? How can he be working if he's literally on house arrest? One of his bond conditions is that he's supposed to actively continue working or find employment, but who's going to hire him? And I guess his dad can. I don't know how he could be working at this point in time at all, but that's just me. So with Josh out on bond, Jim Bob and Michelle have really picked up the tab, and that's kind of one of the focal points of the article, is that the family has splintered, not just so that kids are moving away from it, but just sort of the support of Jim Bob and Michelle of Josh has caused issues with some of the other kids, right? This is what the source, they said, Jim Bob is supporting his son financially and paying his mounting legal bills. Anna, who is pregnant with Josh's 7th child due this fall, is standing by him too. So Jim Bob and Michelle are paying for his legal bills. They also found him a place to stay with LeCount and Maria Reber, and they're paying for his life because Josh literally isn't working right now that I know of. And Jim Bob has lost his staple income with counting on, and because the counting on revenue was so high, his other businesses didn't have to be wholly successful because they were relying on that up to $850,000, $1 million a year. If you aren't making that kind of money, if you have side jobs in real estate or whatever, you're not going to have to worry too much about turning a profit. And the Duggars, even though they have a real estate property stuff, they own primarily just vacant land, a lot of land around them. They own the land where their car dealerships are, which are real businesses. And they have a lot of lots that contain a lot of cars. But in terms of like their construction, they don't typically build from the ground up. Apparently, locals have told me they don't contract their work out. And as far as I know, Jason might be the only contractor in the family. James has a CDL license, and I think John might have some sort of like heavy equipment too. But beyond that, like, and real estate licenses. So Jim Bob might be selling properties or being an agent for people that are buying properties. But beyond that, I don't know what extent of this real estate empire he actually has, or if it's just like real estate holdings he owns, more than likely. And a lot of it's just property with nothing on it from records I've looked at. So he's going to start to feel the crunch sooner or later. And so you are a father that still has five minor children, because you also have taken in Michelle's great nephew, Tyler. So you have Jackson, Johanna, Jordan, Jennifer, and Josie. So you've got 5 kids under the age of 18 in your house that you still have to provide for. You also have some older kids that still live in your home that you're theoretically providing for in a way. Lots of dependents here. And they're going to have to start figuring out what they're going to do financially, because Josh's defense is taking this massive approach of throwing as much as they can at the prosecutors and the government to get out on a technicality. And that's not cheap. 5 motions, 5 arguments, 5 motions, 5 arguments. It's a lot of work for attorneys. And a local I spoke to yesterday was not impressed with what they were trying to pull with these motions to dismiss, or really just how the council the out of town council that they were using didn't think that the judges or the government in the area was going to be super impressed with the way that he's attacking everything that the government has done, and sort of insinuating that the government in this case is bad and it's not Josh that's done wrong things. And that alone has sort of offended some of the residents in the area. Knowing that Josh is being fully funded by his dad, and knowing that Anna is relying on Jim Bob's income, you start to wonder if there's going to ever become a crack in the marriage between Jim Bob and Michelle, if that relationship will ever start to falter on the stress of this situation. And it's truly, truly hard for me to say, because I know for a fact they don't believe in divorce. And because of that strong faith they have in the IBLP, and their faith believing that marriage is basically for life, for better, for worse, for everything. This idea that Jim Bob and Michelle's marriage could be fractured as a result, I don't think it would be easy for any marriage to go through what they're going through. But in terms of them being divided, I would say probably not. I can't see that. But their kids exerting their own independence, I think you're going to start to see more and more. Because when you've picked your son so clearly, you're going to mortgage your life effectively. You've lost your income, you've lost your job because of your son. Think about this. Jim Bob and Michelle have lost and are going to lose so much more than just they've lost their name. They've lost their business opportunities. And that's a big issue for Jim Bob right now, because his name and what Josh has been attached to is affecting Jim Bob's long-term business deals, business opportunities, whether or not he can work effectively in that community or really anywhere. And it affects their marketability being connected to that. And then you have a dad now that's willing to go to the nth degree and maybe sacrifice the needs, the wants, the desires of everyone else for one person who's an adult. If Josh could not afford an attorney, he could have a court-appointed attorney. Like, there's nothing at all requiring Jim Bob Duggar to be paying for his defense. Literally. There's nothing stating that a 33-year-old man should have his 50-something-old dad paying for him and his defense. If Josh can't afford an attorney in a criminal case, the government will assign him a court-appointed attorney. This is just an example to me of how selfish Josh is. That Josh truly believes that he can get out of it and that his dad and his money will get him out of it. But the thing that's different here that people forget is that Jim Bob and Michelle did not have money before the show. They did not have money. They were not wealthy people. They barely finished their house. TLC had to finish their house for them. So even though they've had a level of affluence in the last better part of 20 years, that hasn't been a standard. And they very well could go back to that life of not having a lot of money and not having a lot of opportunities and having to find creative ways to raise their family. And it just shows to me how selfish Josh is, that he's, my dad's going to help me and I'm going to let my dad help me, because why not? Because, why would I help myself, right? But it's that narcissism that has rubbed family members apparently the wrong way. The family source said that Josh is very arrogant and narcissistic. So when your source connected to the family calls you arrogant and narcissistic, and then you're allowing your dad to pay for everything, and Jim Bob and Michelle, imagine how much money they could spend on this. They could spend millions. And Jim Bob will do that because it's not good for business, what's happened here. And then you just start to wonder, how this is going to impact the family as a whole. So locals are not impressed. They want him to be held accountable. Insiders say the family is fracturing and splintering even more. The girls that were at the center of this are kind of, in a way, fracturing from the family, doing their own thing. Ginger, Jill, Jessa, and Joy. I should note that the 4th of July, Jessa did not spend time with her family. She did not spend time for James' birthday. She was heavily pregnant, but those were typical events that she would have gone to. She and Ben are not spending as much time, it looks or it appears, as what we're seeing with her parents, and are seemingly spending a lot more time with his side of the family. So how do they get out of this? I don't know. But if you're a dad that continually is willing to wager your whole life and all of your family's well-being on the wants and needs of one, it's going to cause lasting damage. And when you talk about who's destroyed the family, you can't just blame Josh. You can blame Jim Bob too, because he's the one that continually and consistently picks Josh over all of his other kids. And that's done at a detriment financially, emotionally, and mentally. So, what are your thoughts about this? Tell me in the comments below. Bye, guys.